Hi, I'm Beck and I'm a property investor.
And I'm Daria. I own my own home and I'm curious about investing.
We're the hosts of Investors in the Wild.
We've heard it all before. Build your wealth, get expert advice, learn about high yield, high growth investments, blah, blah, blah.
That's just not us. We're real mates with real talk about real estate. No ego, no financial advice.
It's all about wins you can use right now.
Let's get into it.
Super excited to have one of my dearest friends, Anna, on today's episode. I've known Anna for 19 years. We have had an extensive experience together, both in friendships and in our careers. But what I didn't know about Anna is that she is a quiet property achiever. And all of this has come to light in the last few years with her extensive experience across properties. Anna has had 2 apartments and 2 houses. And today, Beck and I are so excited to deep dive into her experience and extract some great learnings that everyone can leverage. Anna, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you both for having me. I am Anna, in my early 40s, just ticked over. I am married. I've got a few kids. I live in Abbotsford, so the inner west area. And I started investing in my mid to late 20s.
So, Anna, if you could please provide an overview of your property purchasing experience for us.
In 2011, I bought my first unit in Bondi. So that was purely for an investment and very much driven by that rental yield that I would get for the amount that I could afford to borrow. Then late in 2012, so a little bit over a year later, I bought a house in the Canada Bay area. That one I bought in partnership with my husband, so 50-50. And that really was, we were considering both an investment and potential to live in there, though we ended up, whilst we spoke to a few agents about renting it out, we actually ended up moving into it almost straight away. So we didn't end up renting it out. Then in 2017, so 5 years later, again together, we bought a unit in Castlereagh Street in the city. And so that unit was interesting because it is a dual key. So it is one title, one property that you buy and one mortgage, but it's actually 2 units beyond the key. So you have one door and then you have 2 units. And so one was a studio apartment and the other one was a 1-bedroom apartment. So they were rented, insured, everything individually, but the purchase was one. So it was like a two for one.
2 for 1.
Unit. 2 for 1.
On sale.
And held on to all those up until last year, where we were looking to upgrade our family home. And so in order to facilitate that purchase, I ended up selling the Castlereagh dual unit, and also the home in Canada Bay, and purchased a house in Abbotsford, so not far from our old place, just a little bit bigger, accommodate the family. And so now in my name, I have the Bondi unit still and the home that we live in.
Maybe this would be a good segue. When did you first start thinking about investing?
I always assumed I would buy my own property that I would live in. It's the Aussie dream. You buy your house, that's what you do. In my mid-20s, and my partner already owned a few properties, partner who is now my husband. And I think we were talking about savings, and he was like, you're doing with your savings? It's not that I had a significant amount or anything, but I was living at home, so I did have a little bit of extra savings. The way that he'd been brought up, his family dynamic was use that money to build towards your future, whereas I a lot more cautious. And so he seeded that into me that actually I could be doing a little bit more. And I remember the first step was I went to see a broker, and just to find out what could I possibly afford based on what I had. And it was eye-opening. I didn't have a huge budget, but I could buy something. And so we started looking. And I bought my first place 2011, and I was probably looking, 6 months on and off. I hadn't ever owned any property before. I had never gone to an open inspection. And so initially it was really just trying to get a sense of it. Like, I am someone that likes to do my research. So kind of looked at a whole bunch of different suburbs, did narrow in on units because my budget was around $500,000 at the time. I didn't think I could afford a house, but also units tended to give like a better rental yield for what it cost. And so as a first time investor, the rent that I was getting in was really critical to getting the loan approved in the first place. So I really was driven by where could I buy something within my budget that would give me that return, that would make it achievable. As it's someone that was quite young, I'd never had like a significant loan. And so I wanted something that I felt like I could stay on top of. And so the rent would have made sure that I could feel like I could continue to live my life.
That first loan really does feel like you are stepping off a cliff and you're not sure if you're going to be able to sail, fly, drop. Like, you can look at the numbers as much as you want, but you still do have a moment of I'm leaping now.
I was going to say, because Anna, you're again a rare case where you made the decision not long after you thought about it. So some of us, like me, I think I've been thinking about it for years and I haven't made the decision. Whereas you literally thought about it and then went and saw a broker. I think you said the whole process took 6 months end to end. What was it? Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, love, to interrupt you. What was it? It was my partner. I have to give him credit that because he had been through it, he was very confident, and he was very confident in me. He knew me. He knew how my savings were. He knew my behavior and my spending. And he was like, of course you can. And so he really supported me. And then seeing a broker, I didn't have a broker, but he did know somebody. So it helped. And I agree. I think if it was my parents, they own their own home and they have bought homes for the family, but it wasn't in our history, that was in our behavior, you know? And so I don't know that I would have invested if it wasn't for my husband. It was really him, and also his connections and his belief that like, it's fine, let's just go have a look. And so, he's always been someone that's like, this isn't a decision. Let's just explore. So many times we've gone and we've looked and we've spent time looking, and actually we've decided not to purchase anything, right? After a few months. But every time you do that, I feel like we've learned, right? So we have a new like reference, and we're like, okay, so this is the market's at, this is what our money can get us. Actually, this is where we might have to compromise. Are we willing to do that right now? No, we're not. Pause. But I'd be someone that just waited, where he was like, let's just find out. Let's just do our research.
Hey, it's Beck. Just jumping in with some of Anna's gold nuggets. There are two at this point in the episode. First, we talk about this in a few episodes. Networks really matter. We saw this with KJ and really every other investor. Investing is easier to navigate when you are connected with other investors, when you can share experiences, share networks. So make connections, share experiences, and if you don't yet have connections, reach out to me. I love this stuff. Let's chat. And the second gold nugget, another one you hear a lot, especially in this episode with Anna, is research. It literally hurts my heart when I hear of people buying something the first week and they go looking. You need to research. In Anna's case, she was inspecting for 6 months to get a lay of the land. Get as much information as you can before making a move.
I love that. I think if I had that, I swear to you, I would easily make the decision.
Let's do it together.
Oh my God, yes, let's do it together. Forget the massages we get. Let's go and invest. Yes, I've got the cash. It's just that I don't have the mental, like, I need someone to handhold me and take me through the steps, which is why I love doing this podcast with Beck, because this is what I'm getting. Like, I'm basically getting from you and people like you the same information and the same guidance that you got from Simon. I think the difference is also that you've got, like, he's your network, right? And he's literally holding your hand and saying, this is the broker you need to speak to. He's literally guiding you step by step. He's like a walking, talking guide.
Talking guy. Yeah, he did guided me on the whole process. So we ended up buying, Simon was more my moral support, but not my financial. Ended up buying in Bondi. And it was really because as we started looking, we were looking in areas that we kind of knew. So the inner west, we're originally from Southwest, the eastern suburbs, etc. And so we just started narrowing down, and it really was guided by what I could afford and also that rental yield, and feeling like it was somewhere where there would always be potential. And Bondi came up as one after I'd seen quite a few properties, hadn't made any offers, but had been looking for a little while and sort of adding up the numbers. And I'd been looking mostly inner west, like 5 Dock and those areas. The Bondi one just came up one day. I felt like I'd seen enough so that when I saw it, once I ran the numbers, I felt like, like I can really make this work. And I'd seen enough to know that it was worth
It's like dating.
Yeah.
You've got to go and see a whole bunch of people, and then you meet someone who you're like, oh, I've seen enough people now to know that this combination is rare, and
Yeah.
I'm ready to spend more time with this. And I'll
You
move.
might need a renovation, but I'll take
A makeover.
it.
This might be jumping a few steps, but you
Okay.
mentioned a moment ago that if you hadn't got into investing, you think you would have just kept saving till you could afford your dream home. Do you think you would have been able to afford your dream home though without the investing?
It depends on when, because if I then skip to the home that I purchased with my husband as our property, again, I don't think I would have been ready to do that without him, having not invested. So I think that I probably would have eventually bought my own home, but I'm not sure that I could have afforded where we bought when we bought, if that makes sense, just because I would have kept saving. And I think timing is everything. And I think when I started investing was before property really went crazy. And so I do think I would have a home, but I'm not sure that I would be in the inner west where I am. I probably would be further out, would have had to compromise on location just because the prices would have priced me out. I have quite a lot of friends that are entering the market for the first time now, or have entered the market for the first time in the last 5 or so years. And it is much harder, particularly if you're thinking of a home and the emotion that comes with thinking of your forever home. It is a much harder jump. So I do think, one, it warmed me up to having an investment, but it also made me less scared. So I took that step on my home much sooner than I thought that I would.
I wonder if it ended up being a really good idea to keep the house in Canada Bay as your home, because I imagine that would have had significantly more capital gains if I remember it doubled. The apartments didn't.
Definitely. It's really interesting because I bought the Bondi unit and the Canada Bay house only within a year or so of each other. And the home was a few $100,000 more expensive, but in the scheme of things, not significantly. They had such different journeys because obviously the house value increased quite a lot. And so potentially if it was an investment, to be honest, we may have moved pieces around sooner in order to purchase our long-term home, and it probably wouldn't have capitalized on it in the way that we ended up being able to do if it was an investment. And also it would have been tricky because I guess the difference is the rent. Whilst the home itself was more valuable, the rent that you would get for a 2-bedroom house in Canada Bay, and we ended up doing some renovations and converting it into a 3-bedroom, but the rent that you could get for a 2-bedroom home in Canada Bay is less than what you would get for a 2-bedroom unit in Bondi.
It feels like you were maybe comparing like what would set us up better for the forever home? Having the house as an investment. Actually, I don't know if that would have worked. Having the house as an investment would have had a lower yield and you would have paid tax when you sold it, versus moving in, renovating it, as you said, having it as a principal place. It actually means that you've added a lot of value and you're not paying tax. So I feel like was that a deliberate move to make the smarter financial decisions, or did it just work out that way?
I wish it was deliberate. It's definitely what we learned, but I wouldn't say it's what we planned. I agree with you. I think when we considered renting it out initially, just what we would get rental for it just wasn't as high. And so we ended up going, you know what, we're just going to move into it. And I completely agree with you. Had we had it rented the whole time, when we sold it, we would have paid quite a significant capital gain. So we still would have, of course, made some money, but we would have made a lot less money than we did. And whether we would have been able to maintain that home loan for as long as we did with the lower rental yield if we were then living elsewhere. So I guess that would have been the consideration, is at that point we had been living at home with our parents individually. And so had we lived out elsewhere and had all the expenses that come with living elsewhere and tried to keep the Canada Bay home as an investment, I'm just not sure how that would have played out.
Another gold nugget real quick, and I know this isn't possible or easy for anyone, but note that Anna and her husband were living at home until they bought their first home together. I know it's not sexy living at home in your mid-20s or living cheap. I personally was in a roach-infested apartment for the sake of cheap rent for many years. But then, you hit your mid-30s and your 40s and you have a nicer home than you'd otherwise have. And that's when you really appreciate the time living frugal in your 20s. Now that you've learnt this, like Daria and I talk about, everyone has a type, type of guy that you typically go for, but also a type of property that you typically go for. Do you feel like you and your husband now, one of your types would be buying a house to move into, adding value to it, and then selling it? Because that way you can sell it for higher, but you're also paying less tax than if you had. Or was that just like total fluke, great to do, but don't know if I've got the energy to do it again?
Look, I don't know if we have a type because I don't know that we will sell the house that we're in now, but I do think that we definitely approached all of the homes quite similarly. So if I think about the properties that we purchased, all of them didn't necessarily present the best, i.e., they had like good bones and they were good properties, but visually you might not have chosen them on first inspection. And so I think we definitely, what we learned, and I think it's like we said, it's like that whole dating around, it's going and looking lots of properties, because every time we were in the market for a property, we spent a significant amount of time visiting, going, asking questions to the agents, understanding what they were actually expecting the owners were looking for in terms of price, what the rental potential was, really just understanding the property so that we then could compare. And so we were like, oh, okay, so for that much we can get a 2-bedroom place, but actually it's not on the most desirable street.
Isn't this so interesting, like the time spent researching?
Yeah.
And just being okay with perpetually researching and just getting out there. You almost sound like you're having fun while you're doing it. It's not a burden. Last time I mentioned this gold nugget in this episode, research. Again, research was central to Anna and her husband understanding the market ahead of their purchases. Here she mentions looking at properties, understanding prices and yields, and really understanding the market so that they can make smart comparisons when deciding which place to buy. It's not rushed through. The research is part of the process.
Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a witness to your life over the last 19 years, with the last renovation of your previous home, it was because you were expanding your family, right? And you needed more space. And then you also had a network of builders and people who really helped you renovate.
Yeah, no, I think that we did know that the places would need work from the very beginning, but we could tell that, I think it was 2 things. One was that it was perfectly livable straight away. So we knew that we could take our time, that it wasn't like, sometimes we have seen a few places that were in great areas, decently priced, but just you couldn't move in, right? They needed something done to them. There was some issues. They needed work immediately. We were always going, you know what? It's livable. It might not be to our taste, or there might be certain things that would need to be moved around or kind of fixed, but you could move into it today. Or you could rent it out today and take your time. Because I guess for us, we've always been really cautious and always just being really wary of putting ourselves in a position that we just couldn't sustain. And then all of a sudden, like we'd have to sell something or we'd have to make lots of changes. And we've just always been overly cautious. And so for that reason, it's always like, you know what, this place, it's old, it needs work, but you can live in it. It does work with a lick of paint and some very minor touches. You can make it do. So if I think about the Canada Bay house, when we moved in, we ripped out the carpets, we painted it, we did really superficial stuff, and it looked immediately a million times better than when it was listed. All the places that we've purchased, people are like, you're that place, right? So our friends have been like, oh, okay, that's not as maybe nice as we thought, and then looked better. Everyone's like, okay, it's looking good. And then in time, once we more familiar with the space, one, we maybe had it for a little bit, so we were on top of the finances and we felt like, no, we've got this. We've sort of got into the routine of the higher repayments, and you're just into the routine of it. You've got your money flowing and you're like, okay, now we're settled. Now what do we think needs to happen? And I think also by taking our time on it and letting it sit also meant we made completely different decisions. So if I give you an example, we thought originally with our Canada Bay property that we would just renovate the kitchen, we do all of these things. And when we eventually renovated, what we did was completely different. We ended up moving things around. So where the kitchen was, we moved it to the back of the house, and it turned out much better. The flow of the house was better. And because we didn't rush in to do something, And I know not everybody has the luxury of that time, but I think that that was always a consideration for us, which is we can see the potential, but we're not in a rush to get there.
And we have more gold nuggets based on Anna and her husband's approach. With the houses they've bought, the family can move in right away. They aren't perfect properties. Anna mentions their friends are a bit like, oh, this is what you bought? But with superficial improvements, Anna mentions carpet, painting, the places look better. And so the first gold nugget, buying places they can move into, and buying places that aren't amazing to begin with, but they can be nicer with some minor improvements. And then second gold nugget, as they get more familiar with the property and they get more financially comfortable, then they decide what to improve. This helps them to manage their cash flow and the risk deliberately to reduce the chance of finding themselves in financial strain.
And I think even with the home that we've bought now, we were looking to upgrade our family home. I've got 3 little ones, and like my eventual dream is they'll all have their own bedroom. So like we need a 4-bedroom or a place that could become a 4-bedroom. So that really opened us up. So when we were looking, we were like, we will look at 3-bedroom places, but knowing that has to have that potential and what that might cost. And so the place that we bought is a 3-bedroom, but there is the space. Both houses that we bought, the owners that we were buying them from were investors. So they weren't currently living there. They were tenanted. And both of them, to our advantage, didn't necessarily see the value in staging the place. They kind of listed it while the tenants were still in it. One of them was listed while the tenant was in the process of moving. So the boxes everywhere. And so it didn't present particularly well. And I think because we'd spent all of that time dating all of these other houses and all of these other properties, and we knew what we were looking for, when we saw both of these places, we moved quite aggressively because we were like, there's potential here. Right now it's hidden. But as soon as these tenants are out, as soon as this property is empty, everyone else is going to see it. And so having gone through all of the heartache and the time that it takes to go to all of these inspections and that you spend and you look and you invest your energy and you're like, you think this is it and then no, this is it. Like all of that, at the end of the day, it's time well spent because when it was the house, every time we were ready to move. So all of our properties, the homes and the units, we made aggressive offers on the day that we saw it.
The one
Yeah,
fascinating thing was with your current house, right, in Abbotsford. You mentioned that when you walked into the house, there were literal boxes covering the water views, and there was no mention of water views in the description of the property before you went and inspected it. And so basically, the real estate agents had done nothing to promote the value of the house.
They had one job. One job.
One job.
One thing you mentioned is the water
look,
views.
I don't want to badmouth the agents because they were very good to me.
Well, I mean,
But I
you don't
think-
need to badmouth the agents. The sellers are the ones who basically got shafted in that
reviewed it,
process.
yeah.
You, of course, you'd be worshipping those. You should invite them to dinner. Hell, let's invite them to this podcast. Let's have a tea party so we can grill them.
I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so it's really funny because we had been looking at so many properties and we'd already had a sense of what was in our budget, what was out of our budget, what were our non-negotiables. And we were going to an auction actually on Saturday morning, and this property popped up the Friday or the week just before the weekend. And I remember my husband called the agent, is like, is there any chance we can see it before, because we're going to an auction, but we're quite interested. And he's like, you're not seeing it before. I'm making up the times because I don't remember them, but say the inspection for the house that we bought was at 9 a.m. and the auction was like 10 a.m. So we went to see this house before we're going to go to the auction. We walked in, there was only a handful of people in because the tenants were in the process of moving. And so the agent wasn't able to take photos of the property. So the photos that they used as the property were the photos from 10, 15 years ago when it had previously been sold. And so what attracted us was just obviously the location and the size of it. But I think other people looking at the property, seeing those photos, seeing that was the very first weekend that it was open, are probably like, I'm not sure. And the people that did walk through, and there was only a handful when we walked through, were kind of looking around a little bit and then walking back out. And so we spent a bit of time going through it, and my husband was looking, and because the tenants were moving, there were just boxes and things everywhere covering the windows, and sort of the back of the house, it's elevated the way that the house works. It's actually on one side got this beautiful view of the bay there where the ferries come past. I didn't even see it. My husband saw it and he said to me, that there's water views there. I'm like, no, there isn't. And he's like, babe, there is. Do you know what I mean? And so it was quite interesting. So we went through and we sort of discussed it. We're like, this is exactly the space we want to be. It's the street we want to be. The size is there. Yes, it's only 3 bedrooms, but there's space at the bottom where you could put another bedroom. It's all the potential is there. And it's priced, at least what they're saying, kind of where we can afford, which is incredible because nothing that we wanted was in the price we could afford. And so we went to the other auction, saw that play out, went for much higher. It was not as good a house as the one that we bought, but went for much, much higher out of our budget because it was beautifully presented, very competitive auction. And then we made a phone call to the agent, and I can't remember if we made an offer the exact same day or the following. However it was, we got a friend to then come and also do an inspection and get their opinion. But what I do recall is that they were showing it as like a pre-show, showing it to see what the interest would be. And then they were going to not show it for a week so that the tenants could move out. And then they were going to show it again. And what we decided is we needed to make our offer and move really aggressively before that happened, because we were like, once those tenants have moved out and that place is empty, take new photos, it's going to be a completely different house. And so we knew, and we made quite an aggressive offer, and everything sort of fell into place. So definitely luck played a big part in it, but I also think all of our pre-preparation meant that we were ready to take advantage and put luck on our side.
So you've done a couple of houses, a couple of apartments over the space of nearly 15 years, actually. What would you say have been some of the smartest property moves that you've made that have set you up to buy now what is a dream home?
I definitely would say the smartest was the Canada Bay house, just because timing wise, we got into that market at the perfect time, right when it was still within our price range, affordable, but actually the market shifted significantly. And I think the reason it was smart was because we bought into an area we did want to live in. And so in future, if we wanted to upgrade that home or whatever, you were playing within the same property market. So say we had spent that exact amount of money in an area that was less desirable because we didn't want to live there, but it was maybe more affordable or whatever. When we sold that, we would then be trying to buy in a different market. And as you look at property, you learn that just a suburb away makes a huge difference in property prices. Sometimes the same suburb, different streets make a huge difference. And so I think by pushing ourselves to make sure that that first home was where we wanted to live, it always meant that whatever move we made afterwards was in the same area. So we were always within reach, whereas I think that we could have left ourselves out of reach had we bought elsewhere. So I think it was smart for that reason. And timing, I think timing was luck, and we were just ready at the time that we were ready. But I think the what I would do again would be making sure that I was purchasing where I wanted to live, so that I was always within reach of that for future moves.
That's a really different approach to, say, KJ and some of our other guests, is that your investments are where you want to live versus some of the conversations we have is where you take the emotion out of it.
I think it's because it ended up leading into where we wanted our forever home to be. So maybe had we already had our home and we were trying to set ourselves up differently, but it's just the way that it's played out for us.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Faz. Faz is the first investor we had on, and his investing approach has been the same. Where do I want to live? And then he basically finds like the place that people, very similar to you, the place that people walk into and then they walk back out because it's just uncomfortable being in there. But he sees the vision and buying where you want to live, I think. But yeah, we haven't really heard that story with as many other investors. I also think your ability to add value to the property, like you've said that when you walk into a place, you're thinking about, can we add another bedroom? Can we shift the kitchen? So I feel like that's a really smart property move that you've made along the way, particularly for the house. I think buying a house values always increase more than apartment values, but you've then added more value through renovating as well.
That was where we ended up with because of our budgets. I know a lot of people that just know that they want to move into something or buy something and not have to worry about that hassle. And that is very appealing, but it's just not the reality that we had. And so I think what we found is we're not the kind of people that have the skills or understanding to undertake a massive, I think when I heard Faz's story, because I listened, he undertook quite some significant amount of work and used his connections. For us, it was a little bit more like, what are the things that we think we could do to add value to make it what we think it could be, but it is within our realm of like understanding and control, which is move a wall here or move a wall there, update a bathroom, update a kitchen. It's not necessarily like foundational crazy work. So it's also just knowing what would be too far for us and what we feel comfortable with. And that just comes with, I think, a little bit of time and understanding. Because we knew that we were open to making things work and making changes, it did mean that the pool of options were greater, because we could look at things that were completely finished as well as things that had more potential. But we do have a limit. So we definitely are not builders ourselves. We have a couple of friends who are in the building industry, but no extensive connections. And so it's not necessarily something that we'd feel really comfortable going like a full crazy. But yes, where you can add value and feel like you're not paying for somebody else's renovation, right? We use our friends for advice, consultations. Okay. We do seek a lot of advice and opinions, but then we take that in and then make our own opinion. My husband and I are quite balanced in terms of the rational and the emotional. We have such different perspectives, but we respect each other's point of view. So we always end up finding a way that both of us feel really comfortable with. So sometimes I'll feel uncomfortable with something and he'll feel more comfortable, and we'll find what is that place that we both feel is right. So
beautiful.
Hey, it's Daria. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Spotify and drop a rating or a review. It'll help others find the show. And if you know someone who'd benefit from this conversation, please share it with them. We'd also love to hear from you, so DM us on Instagram at Investors in the Wild with feedback, questions, or topic ideas. And if you're an investor with insights to share, hit us up on Instagram or email us at investorsinthewild@gmail.com. After all, we're all mates helping each other.